Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Rabbana la tu'akhizna in nasina aw akhtana. Rabbana wa la tahmil alayna isran kama hamaltahu ala alladhina min qablina. Rabbana wa la tuhammilna ma la taqata lana bih. Wa'fu anna waghfir lana warhamna. أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Welcome, dear friends. Inshallah, I hope the Ramadan is going well for you. So we will continue with our discussion from the 24th word, which is basically we were discussing about how we can look at the hadiths, narrations, the sayings of the Prophet, and how do we understand, how can we try to understand them? Because this is coming from this is the third branch of this 24th word. The second branch focused on our human spiritual journey in terms of how we can follow the prophetic path. And in this third branch, the author is kind of bringing in how we benefit from the prophetic message. And of course, to benefit from the prophetic message, we have to have certain principles that we need to be aware of. So he's sharing some of those 12 principles that he identified. And we discussed up to the first three principles. So we will continue from the fourth principle. Now, some of the words of the narrators of Hadith or the meanings they deduced were considered to be part of the texts of the Hadiths themselves. However, since man cannot be free of fault, some of their deductions or words which were contrary to the truth were supposed to be Hadiths and were pronounced to be weak. So in terms of some of the narrations of Hadith narrations that we have, there are certain words and interpretations in terms of meanings were deduced from the words of the narrators, because as we understand, the narrator is only seeing the or witnessing the physical event or aspect of the what is going on in terms of the prophetic life. They don't know exactly the background or the maybe the what's the within maybe they meet afterwards also, whoever the one observing it. So they only whatever is present in terms of their witnessing, they would narrate that, and then maybe there are some words that get added as well. And so I think one important principle we spoke last time was about what was this thing? I think it was in the first principle was, oh yeah, the second principle, the prevailing opinion is sufficient. Just to recap a little bit, in terms of we spoke about the primary matters and the secondary matters, primary being the belief matters, and then the more jurisprudence and how to follow certain principles. In practical terms, those are like some of them are secondary matters, right? So the prevailing opinion, however, is whatever is prevailing is enough and sufficient. It's one of the more common principles to adhere to. Yes. So here in the fourth principle, I feel more about the point the author kind of is sharing about. So be careful in terms of, okay, so he says this, although maybe the hadiths may be pronounced weak, but you have to see how they connect actually to in terms of the prophetic message, how he relates it to my life in terms of relating it to my source of existence in a way. Right? So take out the sunnah part of it. Anything else on this fourth principle before I move to the fifth? Yes, Brother Ali. Please go ahead.
All of the principles are important, and we need to pay attention to the details. But now last week we talked about the third principles, the transformation of the previous followers of other religious traditions, and the subject content-wise, they are the same. The topic wise they are the same, but the way this topic is presented in the Quran is very different. But in order to explain this content of the Quran, they brought their information from their previous religious traditions, innocent, with a good intention, sharing the knowledge with his friends, and became their former knowledge became as a narration, as a source of narration of a hadith. I heard this companion saying this, but these companions previously were mostly from Jewish background, very rarely Christian background, and very rarely, extremely rarely Christian background. So this Jewish background companion told this because Christian background don't have many common knowledge between the Quran and the Bible, with a New Testament Bible. But Old Testament Hebrew Bible has almost everything in common. Almost. There are exceptions, definitely. We have to be, I'm just emphasizing the importance of this point. We should be careful about this kind of narrations, saying that it is narrated from the hadith. It means definitely the hadith is narrated from the companion of the prophet. Definitely he must heard it. He's not going to tell a lie. It is not expected of them. He must heard this one from the prophet and take it as a prophetic narration. No, we have to be careful. That is very, very, very common mistake that we may make. So we have to watch out about this. Not every narration refer to the messengers, sorry, to the companions, which is called, I think, the marfu' hadith. So a kind of hadith descriptions, titles. So this kind of hadith must be taken very, very carefully, cautiously. Of course, experts know it, but people like me don't know the details. So we have to listen to hadith experts there. We shouldn't pass judgment about a hadith which is narrated and I read in the hadith book. No, listen to the experts first and then make or benefit from this cautiously. It doesn't mean that completely wrong, but we have to be very cautious about it. Today we read narrators' interpretations of the hadith. Again, this is also is not very straightforward for what seems to be easy. If the narrator's interpretation of the hadith is involved, we have to be careful about it. No. How do you know? Is it really, it needs expertise again. Is it really narrator's interpretation of exactly the sayings of the prophetic words? Now, we know that hadiths are have different categories. One is the sayings of the prophet is narrated. The second is silence of the prophet is narrated. As, as he is silent, it means he approved it. But approved it for what reason? We have to know. This person doesn't understand if I explain it further. That is why he kept silence to be respectful to this person. Or it was right, there is no need to say something else. These are not the very simple matters. We have to listen to the experts, what they say. This the prophet, somebody did this, somebody said this, and the prophet said nothing on top of this event or this saying. Why? Experts should interpret it, not me. So again, it is very careful. It is a very delicate subject. So we should not really play a very shallow, naive way while we are reading the hadith and talking about hadith, saying that I heard the hadith this and this. That is a very cheap way of treating the hadith. We have to be careful. The same fourth principle has another aspect. The Prophet ﷺ said something, before going into this aspect, there is one thing. There are many, many hadith narrated from the life of the Prophet, not sayings of the Prophet, not silencing of the silence of the Prophet, but the thing the Prophet did, action. I saw Prophet doing this. This also, this category of narrations falls in the fourth principle. Why? I saw this from my perspective with my eye, and I interpret the event, and accordingly I narrated it. Without interpreting what I saw, it is impossible not to say, not to narrate an event. Every event physically took place. When it is narrated, it is inevitably includes in it the narrator's interpretation of the hadith, of the event. Even you take a video recording, the way you take the video recording of the event is an interpretation. You could have taken the video recording of the event from another side. It would look different. So, let alone with video recording, a person is observing. And whatever he remembers afterwards from the event, he narrates it. It is definitely within the fourth principle, interpretation, that their uh, sayings, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't include, contain at all any truth. No, it does, but we have to know this is the narrator's interpretation of the event, and we have to be cautious. If somebody is like me, ignorant of hadith discipline, hadith subject, we have to just wait for the experts to say something. Of course, we cannot get one idea, one point of view about the interpretation of this kind of hadith. The interpreters, experts' interpretation are more likely to be true or correct than my understanding, but at the same time, I may see another interpretation of another expert. It shouldn't puzzle me because it is very human. We have to interpret, and we are interpreters of the events there. It is inevitable not to be an interpreter of the event that we are witnessing or observing. Practically speaking, if there is an event, if there are 10 people observing it and event is over, you ask them, 10 of them, describe the event to me, please, individually without listening to each other. You will have 10 different interpretation of the hadith, although the content will be in will have a common point, but at the same time, evaluation of the point will have 10 different opinions. That is very human. We have to bear in mind. Now, another last point that concerning the fourth principle.
Before you go there, Brother Ali, so who are these experts basically in terms of the interpretation?
Hadith experts.
So they have books or anything, or how do they do it?
They have their own studies, volumes of books, which are beyond our reach
But
now.
they're not that popular in this.
So not practical, but we have to know that we have to be cautious. We cannot treat hadith narrations in a shallow way. But those people's writings are really only those people who are specialized in hadith. They study it. They are not common among people. I don't have any of them, for example. So you can so there are huge amount of hadith narrations available, and this is not only that I got one volume of book, the one book is not enough for hadith narrations. Bukhari, how many volumes? Muslim, how many volumes? How many volumes? Can you imagine the interpretations made on them by the experts? What would you get? So these are a speciality, something like if I tell you, you know, the subject of medicine is varies, many subjects of medicine. If you say that, if somebody complains about a health problem, his or her health problem, if I say, in order to pass a judgment or prescribe a solution to this health problem, one has to be medicine expert. And if someone comes and asks, what books are the experts of medicine have written? Man, it is full of a library. Do you see what I mean? So it only on this the specialized people in this area study those books. I don't have it. I don't know. But definitely I know, for example, a person who studied the names mentioned in the hadith narrations wrote something 30 or 40 volumes of books, the lives of the narrators. Do you see what I mean? Volumes. So it is not only one. I mean, I remember reading the names of these books only, and I forgot them because I have studied. It's not my specialties. I said, this person wrote this 30 volumes of books about the names of the or the lives of the narrators, hadith narrators.
So why is this author sharing these principles then if we cannot try to understand?
Be careful.
Be careful
Yes.
and
Yeah, be careful. So if you read a hadith, good question, very good. All of them are good questions. If you read a hadith and you say, what is it talking about? It is trash. It is not really correct. I don't really agree with it. It doesn't make sense. He says, be careful. Don't reject hadith, but it may be just narrator's interpretation. So don't get really disappointed with hadith narrations. But there are some things to be taken cautiously. But you know it, there is such a meta. That's it. You don't know which is which. But there is such a problem. So you don't, it means the aim of the author is don't reject the hadith totally, claiming that they are not reliable. The purpose is this. That's why short reminders, this kind of sayings. But at the same time, some hadith narrators, as far as the you do you want to say something? This cannot be free of fault. Some of their deductions or words which were contrary to the truth were supposed to be hadiths and were pronounced as to be weak hadiths. So when it's a weak hadith, it means there is something interpretation on it, and only experts say this is a weak hadith, this is a sahih hadith, it's an ahad hadith, it's a da'if, that is weak. So it is even some false hadith, mawdu, they say mawzu hadith. It means made up hadith. Because the experts couldn't find any evidence that this narration chain can be traceable. That say this is mawdu. But it doesn't mean that content of this hadith is wrong. We have to be careful. But according to the criterion that certain hadith experts uses his own, every hadith expert has almost different, slightly different principles, criteria. So while they are analyzing the hadith, they analyze that according to their criteria. If the hadith narration doesn't fit especially the chain side, narrator's side, doesn't fit their criteria, what the criterion, no criteria, what they say it is mevzu hadith. It doesn't mean that content of this mevzu hadith is necessarily wrong. We have to be careful again. It is hadith narration, but mevzu category of hadith narration. We think that every hadith is titled as mevdu is fabricated and nothing truth it has. No, no truth it has. No, it has, but according to the hadith criteria, it doesn't fit. In the narration side, not content side. Again, another matter we have to be cautious. Now, concerning the fourth principle, another matter, some hadith narrators understand the prophetic saying within the context of his life, within the context of the teachings of the Quran, and why prophet said to this certain person in this way, it cannot, they are good intention, with a good intention. If I literally translate it, or not, transmit, narrated, if I literally transmit it, the readers may not understand it correctly. So let me generalize the content of the hadith. Be careful here. He says, let me generalize the content of the hadith so that it will be applicable to generally Muslim people's concerns or any subject, rather than a specific matter is generalized. We see in most of the Abu Huraira hadith narrations this aspect. First of all, generally, the content is correct. Precise saying of the prophet may not be correct, but what the prophet meant for this specific case is generalized with a good intention and a good perception, how do you say, view, right understanding, generalized it and narrated it. That's what Abu Huraira does. This is sometimes very, very frequently Aisha radiallahu anha does. Generally Abu Huraira does, rarely Ibn Abbas does. Ibn Abbas also does this kind of thing. Oh, it wouldn't be understood. So generalization of the content and narrated it with an easily understandable statements. These are made with good intention and right purpose. And people, experts, know this, but don't reject Abu Huraira hadiths. But we hear Shia tradition, most of the Abu Huraira hadiths are wrong because not literal translation, they say. It is right, but as Abu Huraira did, was better because made it applicable, useful for the ummah, for the community. These are important matters. So it is not easy to throw a narration of an hadith away just because it doesn't match 100% to the criteria of the hadith experts. We have to be careful. Sorry for my long.
Thank you. So, for example, the generalizations that you were saying, so that those comes in the words of the narrators. So, like an example, like Aisha Ta'ala Anha says, for example, the walking Quran is the character of the Prophet ﷺ. That's like a generalization.
This is not generalization. This is description.
Okay.
Now, we discussed this in the description of an event. Event means the life of the Prophet in the eye of Aisha. Understood?
Yes. So, what is an example of generalization?
Oh, there are many, but I don't know the original ones. But when you read the hadith narrations, you will see that there are other narrations vague in understanding, very specific. We don't know, but in especially in Bukhari and partially in Muslim, uh, Bukhari narrates every hadith, but every means he is convinced that it is sahih. It means it is authentic, and every authentic hadith. So in the wordings of a narrator, and also in other wordings narrated from another narration. For example, I personally, I it doesn't really, I don't really understand. I don't really understand when I see Abu Huraire's narration of the same subject, same matter, not different. And Abu Huraira also narrated this hadith in this way. I say, okay, I understand now. It makes sense because he put it, the narration, he put it in such a way that it is applicable uh, for the Muslim life or the Muslims in a way it is paraphrased in a way that everybody understands it comfortably. So that is why I say Abu Huraira narrations are mostly in this category. And I am really very happy with Abu Huraira, radiallahu anhu, because he made it available, accessible, the narrations, hadith narrations for us. Otherwise, the others are uh, hard to follow, to practice, to understand. He's a
I
great man.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. So they're more practical, right? Abu Huraira's kind of narrations.
Yeah. We said really, really, he served Islam a lot and preserved the prophetic heritage, mashallah, with doing this or through doing what I said.
Inshallah. So we have to apply it to our lives, how we see it, right? Basically.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay. I'll continue with the fifth principle.
Yep.
According to the meaning of among my community are transmitters of hadith. That is meaning who are inspired. Some of the meanings which were obtained through the inspirations of scholars of related hadiths who followed the path of illumination and sainthood. So, path of illumination and sainthood were supposed to be hadiths, whereas, due to certain obstructions, the inspiration of saints may be in error. That's a very powerful statement. Thus, some of that are contrary to the truth may arise from this. Some that are contrary to the truth may arise from this. So if the saint, any saint, someone who is seen as a saint, may be saying, sharing something as part of their inspiration, then they can be in. I mean, they may be right for them, but for me, I don't know. So it could be something in error.
Yeah, something in error. Yep. I think why they may have some errors in them. Now, I understand it in this way. There is an hadith, as the text says, and the Prophet ﷺ, a Sahih hadith, saying, among my community are transmitters of hadith. Transmitters of hadith means who are inspired, which means muhaddathun. So this is the Arabic term. What does there is a number there, one. Does it show any source? But you have to go to the.
Yeah, I have to go to the book.
But all right, don't bother, whatever it is. So mulhamun, ilham. Are you familiar with the word ilham?
No.
Oh, Adam is among us. Adam, are you familiar with the word ilham?
Not Assalamu alaikum. Not very familiar, but inspiration
Yeah,
is what I understand.
yeah. Muhaddith, mulham,
But different from nuzul, from
muhaddith.
tanzih. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Nursi says muhaddithun. Nursi says this muhaddithun means uh, inspired, mulhamun. Now, ilham, this word inspired. Those transmitters of hadith, muhaddithun. Now, what does it mean? A person studies the Quran, studies hadith, and sincerely concentrates on them and understand that a person who have received this Quran, but knowingly, not only generally speaking, no, aware, and being educated by the Quran, and who have been behaving in this way, in such a way that they realize which kind of character the prophet must have developed under the instruction of the teachings of the Quran. Now, there is an event, and this man sincerely, that's what he is called here, saint, illumination of a saint. Now, there is an event, and he says, if the prophet was here, in quote unquote, I assume he would have said this. And of course, this is a kind of spiritual contentment, satisfaction. Definitely, if the prophet was in this case, for example, he is living in a certain way or experiencing a certain event, the prophet would have done this way. would have done this way. As we say, imagine the prophet is living in your house, in the room where you are, living a family life, especially like Adam's family, and everybody is in the, let's say, living room, wife, husband, and children, and they are talking, they are doing something, but they should, let's say our friend, brother Adam, will imagine that prophet is sitting there watching them. Adam would say, the prophet would like me to behave like this towards this child. Prophet would like me to say something to this child. Understood? This is Adam's opinion, but Adam's opinion according to the, if you like, characteristics, akhlaq of the prophet. The prophet would like to do this here in this way. So I would do that, so I won't be ashamed of it in the presence of the prophet here, because prophet is sitting there. This is just imagination, but it's a scenario. This inspired people have this attitude always. If the prophet was here, how he would have behaved, how or what he would have said is this. And say, this is as if prophet saying. So it means, with a good intention, narrating the prophetic akhlaq, ethics, morality. No, it's not good. The way the prophet would have said, would have behaved. Akhlaq. And the prophet would have behaved. They say this is what the prophet would have done, but in their narration, what do they say? Prophet said this. So we have to be careful. The inspiration, as you underlined it, inspiration of saints may be in error, may be. Some of them are correct, most of them are correct, some of them are contrary to the truth. So this may result in rejecting the hadith narrations. It doesn't mean that we have to throw this hadith narration away, but it may have some error in it. It may not be absolutely correct, because this man is not the prophet. He is just imagining how the prophet would have said it, or would have said it, or would have behaved it. With a good intention, we cannot really throw all these sayings away. They maybe they are all correct, but according to the hadith criteria, they may not be considered as hadith criteria, but it doesn't mean that it is contrary to the teachings of the prophet or to the mission of the prophethood. We have to be careful. That's what the author is saying us. And also the hadith, he mentioned here, among my community are transmitters of hadiths. Its meaning is who are inspired. So inspired people will say something. Though the prophet said, don't throw them away straight away. Be careful. They may have lots of truth in it. Okay.
So I looked at the footnote in the book for the word inspired. It has the transmitters Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Musnad al-Qurtubi.
Is this hadith seems to be sahih, or as the experts regarded it as really authentic hadith. So this hadith says, be careful, there will be some people saying something, although I didn't say them exactly, but there are among my community, ummah. So take it seriously. We are learning. So they are our teachers.
So these Sahih hadiths, basically, you're saying these are like the saints, or
Basically, what did you say I'm saying?
no. So those who are inspired, and the reference was given to all those, the ones who are the transmitters of hadiths, right? The Bukhari, Muslims,
Not transmitters of the hadith means, in this case,
the chains.
no, not
Okay.
at all. Nothing to do with the chain. Who are inspired. It means we should read this hadith to the meaning, because later on the word transmitter is used used only narrators. No, among my community are people who are inspired of hadith, not transmitters of the hadith, inspired, not, of course, revealed. No, inspired, because they say now this inspiration, ilham, inspiration. I think the Prophet would have said this. Not inspired. Yeah, it said that. Ilham. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mulhamun, who are inspired. Who are inspired is the best way. Ilham. Mulham. Not inspired. Who are inspired, if you want to write it. Among my community are people who are inspired of hadith. Yep. I think understood, inshallah. This hadith subject is very, very sensitive. Yeah, we should not really take it simple and say that this hadith is fabricated, this is authentic. No, be careful. We don't know. Just take it and say, I can benefit from it, or I cannot. If you think that you cannot benefit from a narrator, don't throw it into the trash can. Say, okay, I couldn't get it. There must be a meaning, and leave it. That I didn't understand, and leave it. Don't pass judgment.
Thank you, Brother Ali. Any other thoughts or comments by anyone? Okay, so we'll go to the sixth principle. There are certain stories which have become universally known, have become like proverbs. Their true meanings are not borne in mind. For whatever purpose they were spread, that is what is considered. Thus, some stories and fables which have become well known among people in this way, God's noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, told in the form of comparisons and metaphors for the purpose of guidance. If there is any error in the true meanings of this sort of matters, it pertains to the customs and traditions of the people and the way they have been passed among them. So basically, any of those hadith narrations that are in the form of stories or proverbs, right? So do you have to see there's like a metaphor or comparison or something that is relevant to me or to guide me, purpose of guidance. And anything that is detailed in terms of the story that relates to that time, then that is just for that custom and tradition at that time. So I have to extract out what is the purpose of guidance for me in those stories and fables. Any comments, thoughts?
You have rightly underlined this. Whatever purpose they were spread, that is what is considered, not the story itself. What was the purpose in telling this story? It must be taken under consideration. It must be borne in mind. Yeah, whatever the purpose they were, they were spread, that is what is concerned. So in these comparisons and metaphors must be interpreted for the purpose of guidance, not the story. And for example, the prophet gave an example. There was a man, or how can I make it? There was a king, and he had a, let's say, minister. For example, we are not supposed to look who this king was. It was just an example, nothing to do with the real king, nothing to do with a real minister. No, there was a, let's say, a master who treated his slave in this way. In the akhirah, yeah, this is just a given way of giving advice how the slave owners, before they were abolished, should treat their slaves. Nothing to do with real slave owner and slave relationship. No, it is just an example. So we have to see the point in these proverbs. So while another point in this sixth principle, while the proverb is being narrated, because it became famous, universally known, as the text says, people narrate it differently, slightly differently, not exactly the same as the prophet said. For example, there must be a funny man in your country. He said some funny sentences or funny, how do you say, witty sayings. Everybody narrates it, but slightly different from each other. So we cannot really get the exact sayings of the prophet, and we should not look for the exact event, how and when it took place. No, take the lesson, the purpose of this narration. Don't lose yourself in the narration. These are comparisons and metaphors for the purpose of guidance, as you, yeah, as you pointed out, underlined it. Perfect underlining, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. All right. Any other thoughts or comments? Right, so we'll go to the seventh principle. So there are many similes and parables that with the passage of time or with passing from the hand of learning to the hand of ignorance have been supposed to be physical fact and have become mistaken. For example, the two angels of God in the world of similitudes called the ox and the fish, who are among the supervisors of the animals of the land and the sea, and are represented as an ox and fish, were imagined to be huge ox and a physical fish, and the hadith was wrongly interpreted. So they're like similes and parables, basically, just like the previous principle about metaphors for the purpose that they need to be studied for. And for example, one time in the presence of the Prophet, a deep rumbling was heard. God's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, decreed, "That is the sound of a rock that has been rolling downhill for 70 years and only now has hit the bottom of hell." So the reference is giving to some hadith, right? So thus someone hearing this hadith who does not know the truth may deviate into denial. So the truth about this hadith. But then 20 minutes after the hadith was spoken, it was definitely established, for someone came and told God's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, the famous dissembler died 20 minutes ago. God's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, had described most eloquently how the dissembler's 70-year lifetime of unbelief, so the 70 years or whatever lifetime of unbelief, so that was the main point, had been a continuous descent to the lowest of the low as a stone of hell. Almighty God had made the rumbling heard at the moment of his death and given him a sign.
There are many hadith narrations like this. Even the Quranic descriptions of creation of heavens and earth and lots of things. Physical description of the things. And most of the people took it physically and tried to explain it physically and claiming that exactly physically it happens like this because the Quran says so, because Hadith says so. That is a problem. It's a very serious problem among among scholarship. Some people take the things literally. This Hadith narration here, at the rock falling down the for 70 years and hit the bottom of the hill, it means, or hell, or it says, the hell from the top to the bottom. One, can you imagine? You think that you imagine that a stone, a big rock, is falling for 70 years, and then only get the bottom of the hell. It means the degrees and the distance between the top and the bottom of the hell is too big. It's nothing to do with it. It has nothing at all. It is a life of a munafiq. Look at this. We have to be very careful. All these narrations in the Quran and the Hadith, narrations, which are presented to us in physical forms. Oh, really, every principle is really very important, but the seventh principle is very, very important, not only in Hadith matters, in Quran also. What the Jewish people and the Christians is followers of the Torah, Hebrew Torah as well, because they accept, most of the Christians accept Hebrew Torah as their accepted source, and they insisted that the universe was created in 6 days. And anybody who studies a little bit, uses a little bit of his mind, will understand that universe is created in 6 days, but at that time there was no world in the solar system. So there was no day. What are they talking about? And they said, no, text says so, must be so. You have to accept it. And though rarely, they even killed, punished a lot, excommunicated many because of this, and people turned their back to religion because of this literal reading of the text. Now, people say the earth is, as the hadith says, earth is based on, or stands, the earth stands on ox and fish. Nothing to do with ox and fish. Ox and fish is the means of rizq, human sustenance. So earthly life is based on produce of the earth and produce of the sea, fish, and ox also used to cultivate the land, farming at that time. But some people believed that for many, many centuries. So this subject is really serious, very serious, serious than previous ones. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So the same principle applies in many of the verses of the Quran, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. All
That
right.
we have been trying to understand the Quran when we study the Quran.
Yeah.
I say, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Because I had an interesting conversation yesterday with a student in terms of the metaphor similes being used in the Quran. And it was not well taken, actually. They said, no, we cannot say these things. I don't know what they're, so I didn't continue my conversation.
If he is or she is from Pakistan and Bangladesh, almost impossible.
From Afghanistan, in fact, impossible. Yeah, so I left it. Yeah, I said, okay, that's good.
You may explain it a little bit to an Arab, but Pakistan, Bangladesh, Muslims of India, or Adam, definitely exception. But generally speaking, I don't know. They are very clever, very successful in engineering, very robotic in religion. generally speaking.
Inshallah. Inshallah, we'll be careful. Inshallah. Thank you. So I'll stop here basically for today. So we'll continue with the next principles next time, inshallah, next week, from the eighth principle. Thank you for all the sharing and conversation, alhamdulillah, that made us more realize how careful we have to be in terms of how we are benefiting from many of the things. And it's true, like we cannot really take any of the hadiths or even the scripture literally, right? So how can we just make sense of the two angels, ox and the fish, or the rolling of the rock rumbling, the sound? So we have to see the similes, parables, metaphors in these things. All right. So I'll stop with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka anta al-alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bi hurmati suratul Fatiha.